3 summers ago, my friends and I were completely burned out. Same boring routine every day. Wake up, work, come home exhausted, repeat. So when summer finally started, we decided we needed one last real vacation before life pulled everyone in different directions. Something simple. Just a week away from everything. No cities. No stress. No phones constantly buzzing. Just us. There were 5 of us total. Me, my cousin Tyler, his girlfriend Mia, our friend Connor, and another guy named Blake. Tyler suggested renting a cabin near Lake Tahoe deep in the forest for a few days. At first it sounded perfect. Huge lake, bonfires, fishing, cold beer. The cabin itself sat far from the main road. You had to drive almost 30 minutes through narrow forest roads just to reach it. No nearby houses, no cell service half the time, just trees, endless trees. During the day it was beautiful. Huge lake nearby, warm weather, kayaking, bonfires. Exactly the kind of summer trip people post online, pretending their lives are perfect. The weird stuff didn't start until the second night. We were sitting outside around the fire drinking beer when Connor suddenly looked toward the trees behind the cabin. You guys see that? At first I thought he meant an animal. Then I noticed it too. A small white light deep between the trees. Like someone holding a flashlight. The beam moved slowly for a few seconds, then disappeared. Tyler shrugged immediately. Probably campers. That made sense. The forest had hiking trails nearby. People camped there all the time. Nobody thought much about it, until the next night. Around midnight, the light came back. Same area in the woods behind the cabin, except this time, there were 2 lights, both moving slowly between the trees. Not random movement either. It looked deliberate, like people walking carefully. Mia got uncomfortable immediately. That's creepy. Connor laughed. It's probably hikers. At midnight? He didn't answer that. We watched the lights for maybe 10 minutes. Eventually, they vanished deeper into the forest. And honestly, that should have been the end of it. But the third night changed everything. That evening, we stayed out later than usual. Bonfire going. Music playing softly from a speaker. Around 1 in the morning, Blake suddenly lowered the music volume. You hear that? We all stopped talking. First, I heard nothing. Then, faint whistling somewhere in the woods, not an animal. Human whistling, slow, off-key, moving between the trees. The flashlight appeared again shortly afterward. Only one this time, farther away than before. The beam swept slowly across the forest, then stopped, pointing directly toward the cabin. Nobody spoke for several seconds. I remember feeling genuinely uneasy for the first time, because whoever was out there could clearly see us. Connor tried joking again. Maybe they're lost. But his voice sounded nervous now, too. The flashlight stayed aimed toward us for almost a full minute, then shut off instantly. Complete darkness. That night before bed, Tyler locked every door in the cabin, just in case. The next morning we found footprints near the tree line. Fresh ones. Boot prints. At least one person had come closer to the cabin during the night. Much closer. Mia wanted to leave immediately after seeing them. Tyler told her she was overreacting. Honestly, I agreed with him at first. People hike through forests all the time. Maybe someone wandered too close accidentally. Still, the mood changed after that. Nobody wanted to stay outside after dark anymore. That afternoon, Connor suggested we hike one of the nearby trails, mostly to prove nobody was actually scared. We followed a trail leading deeper around the lake for maybe an hour, and eventually, we found something strange. Another campsite, hidden deep among the trees, but it didn't look active. No tent, no people. Just remains of an old fire pit surrounded by beer cans and torn fabric, and hanging from one tree nearby was a flashlight, old, dirty. Still hanging by its wrist strap. Blake picked it up, probably abandoned. Then Connor noticed something else. Several carved marks on nearby trees. Tall vertical scratches. Too clean to be natural, almost intentional. Mia immediately wanted to leave. Nobody argued this time. That night, the lights returned earlier than usual. Around 10 p.m., 3 flashlights now, moving slowly through the woods behind the cabin. Much closer than before. Close enough that we could see beams passing between trees clearly. Tyler stepped onto the porch and yelled, "Hey!" The lights stopped moving instantly. Complete silence filled the woods. Then one flashlight switched off, then another, then the last one. Darkness. Nobody moved. And that's when we heard footsteps, crunching leaves somewhere beyond the tree line. Slow, steady, walking toward the cabin. Mia started crying immediately. Connor grabbed the fireplace poker while Tyler locked the front door again. The footsteps stopped just outside the visible tree line, maybe 50 feet away. We couldn't see anyone, but we could hear movement, branches shifting softly, someone standing there, watching us. Then, a whistle, closer than before. Right outside the cabin area, Blake whispered. What the hell is wrong with these people? Nobody slept much that night. Around 3 in the morning, I woke up, needing water. The cabin was completely dark except moonlight through the windows. As I walked toward the kitchen, I noticed something outside, a flashlight beam, moving slowly across the back porch. My heart stopped instantly. Someone was right outside the cabin. I crouched low near the window carefully. The beam moved across the porch railing, then the back door, then disappeared. I waited several seconds before risking another glance, and that's when I saw him, a person standing near the trees, tall, wearing dark clothes, holding the flashlight pointed downward. I couldn't see a face, just the outline, standing perfectly still, watching the cabin. Then suddenly, another flashlight switched on deeper in the woods behind him, then another. At least 3 people, maybe more. I backed away from the window immediately and woke Tyler up. Within minutes, everyone was awake. Nobody even argued anymore. We were terrified. Tyler grabbed his truck keys. We're leaving, but when we opened the front door, something stopped us cold. A line of small rocks had been placed across the porch steps, perfectly arranged, like markers, and sitting in the center was Connor's flashlight, the same flashlight he'd lost earlier during the hike. Nobody touched it. We got into Tyler's truck immediately, and the second headlights illuminated the trees. We saw movement everywhere. Multiple figures standing among the woods, not hiding anymore, just standing there silently between trees. At least 6 people, maybe more, all holding flashlights. None of them moved when the truck lights hit them. They just stood there, watching. Tyler reversed the truck so fast we nearly hit a tree. Then we sped down the dirt road out of the forest. Nobody spoke for several minutes. We finally stopped at a gas station nearly 40 minutes away. And that's when Blake noticed something horrifying. Mud smeared across the truck's rear window. Words written with a finger. Come back tonight. Mia started sobbing immediately. We ended up staying at a motel near the highway instead. Nobody wanted to return, but Tyler still insisted there had to be some explanation. Probably locals messing with tourists. Maybe. Except the next morning, Tyler checked the cabin security camera app on his phone. The property owner had outdoor cameras installed around the porch, and during the night, the cameras recorded people surrounding the cabin. At least 8 figures visible moving slowly between trees, none of them speaking, none showing faces clearly, just flashlights, walking circles around the cabin for hours. At one point, one of them approached the back porch camera directly and stared into it. The footage quality was poor, but the face looked wrong somehow, pale, expressionless, almost unfinished. Then at around 3:12 a.m., all the flashlights shut off simultaneously, every single one, and the figures disappeared into the woods together, like they were responding to some signal. The property owner later told Tyler something strange too. Apparently previous renters had complained about lights in the woods before, but nobody ever stayed long enough to report more than that. The weirdest part came weeks later. Connor searched online for old information about the area surrounding the cabin, and he found a forum post from years earlier. Another group staying near those woods described almost the exact same thing. Flashlights, whistling, people watching from the trees, and one sentence I still think about sometimes. They never approached the cabin until we noticed them noticing us. I haven't gone camping since that trip, and honestly, I probably never will again, because every once in a while late at night, I remember those figures standing silently between the trees, not hiding, not attacking, just watching, like they were waiting for us to do something first. And the scariest part is, we still don't know who they were, or how long they'd been out there watching us before we first saw the lights. Most people think remote cabins are peaceful. That's the whole reason people rent them. No traffic, no neighbors, no noise, just trees and silence. But after what happened to us, I don't think I'll ever trust a quiet place again, because silence only feels peaceful when you believe you're alone. This happened 2 summers ago, My friend Carter invited me and his younger sister Lily to spend 4 days at an old family cabin in the mountains of West Virginia. The place had belonged to Carter's grandfather years earlier. After he died, nobody really used it anymore. According to Carter, the cabin mostly sat empty except during hunting season. At first, that sounded perfect. No internet, no traffic, no people. Just a quiet summer trip away from everything. There were only 3 of us total: me, Carter, and Lily. The cabin itself sat deep in the woods at the end of a narrow dirt road. Not another house for miles. The kind of place where nights get so dark you can barely see past the porch light. But honestly, during the daytime it was incredible. Fresh air, huge pine trees everywhere, a small creek nearby, the kind of peaceful silence you never get in cities. The weird thing is, nothing actually felt wrong when we first arrived. Not immediately, that changed the first night. Around midnight, I woke up needing water. The cabin was completely dark except moonlight through the windows. As I walked toward the kitchen, I heard something underneath me. A soft thud, then another. Like movement below the floorboards. I stopped instantly. The cabin stood raised slightly above the ground on old wooden supports, leaving a crawl space underneath. At first I assumed it was an animal. Raccoon, maybe. Possum. Something small. Then I heard it again. Slow scratching. Directly beneath the cabin. I stood there listening for maybe 30 seconds before it stopped completely. The next morning I mentioned it casually over breakfast. Carter shrugged. Probably raccoons. Lily looked uncomfortable immediately. What if somebody's living under there? Carter laughed. No one's living under the cabin. At the time, I laughed too. But that idea stayed in my head longer than it should have. That afternoon we went hiking near the creek for a few hours. Nothing unusual happened. But when we returned to the cabin, the front door stood slightly open. Carter froze immediately. I locked that. We checked the entire cabin carefully. Nothing stolen. No signs of forced entry. But small things felt different somehow. One kitchen chair pulled out slightly. A cabinet left open. Lily's backpack moved from the couch onto the floor. Tiny things. Easy to explain away individually. But together they felt wrong. Carter blamed the old door latch. Said it probably didn't close properly. Still, that night he locked it twice. Around 1:30 a.m., the sounds underneath the cabin came back. This was louder. Not scratching. Footsteps. Slow movement directly beneath the floor. I sat upright in bed instantly. Across the room, Carter heard it too. We both stayed completely silent listening. The footsteps moved from one side of the cabin to the other, then stopped directly underneath us. The silence afterward felt worse somehow. Then, 3 knocks sounded beneath the floorboards. Soft, but deliberate. Knock, 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 Carter whispered. What the hell? Nobody moved. Then suddenly, Lily screamed from the other room. We ran into the hallway immediately. She stood near the kitchen pail as paper pointing toward the back door. It moved. What moved? The doorknob. Carter checked outside with a flashlight. Nothing there. Just darkness beyond the porch. But while he scanned the trees, I noticed something else. Mud. Fresh mud smeared across the wooden porch floor, like someone stepped onto it recently. Bare footprints, human, leading toward the side of the cabin, toward the crawl space underneath. That's when things stopped feeling like animal noises. The next morning, Carter found the crawl space entrance behind the cabin partially open. It was a small wooden hatch near the foundation, old and weathered, the lock hanging broken. We all just stared at it silently. Lily immediately wanted to leave, honestly. I did too. But Carter still thought maybe some drifter had wandered onto the property temporarily. So instead of leaving, he grabbed a flashlight and opened the hatch fully. The smell hit us first. Rotting food, wet dirt, something sour. The crawl space itself wasn't tall enough to stand in. Only a few feet high, just dirt beneath the cabin's supports. At first the flashlight revealed nothing unusual. Then Carter's beam moved farther inward and stopped. There was a sleeping bag under there. Old blankets, empty food cans, water bottles. Someone had absolutely been living beneath the cabin. Lily started crying immediately. Carter backed away from the hatch fast. We slammed it shut and pushed a heavy toolbox over it. Then we called the local sheriff's office. But because of how remote the area was, they said it might take hours for someone to arrive. So we stayed inside waiting, and that's when things got worse. Around sunset, we heard coughing underneath the cabin, a man coughing, not loud, but unmistakably human. Lily almost completely panicked. Carter shouted through the floor, We called the cops. Silence followed, then slow movement beneath us again, like crawling. I'll never forget that sound. Hands and knees dragging across dirt directly below the floorboards. The sheriff still hadn't arrived by dark, and cell service kept cutting out. Eventually, Carter decided the three of us should stay together in the living room until police came. Nobody slept. Around midnight, we heard the hatch move outside, very slowly, wood scraping against dirt, then footsteps beneath the cabin again, circling underneath us, directly below the floor. Then came whispering, soft, muffled through the floorboards. At first I couldn't understand the words. Then, slowly, I realized whoever was underneath us was repeating something. Leave. Over and over, quietly. Leave, leave, leave. Lily buried her face into Carter's shoulder, crying. Then suddenly, bang. Something slammed hard against the underside of the floor. All three of us jumped. Another bang followed from beneath the kitchen, then another beneath the hallway, like someone crawling rapidly underneath and hitting the floor from below. Carter grabbed the fireplace poker while I called 911 again. No signal. Nothing. The lights flickered once, then went out completely. Darkness swallowed the cabin. Lily screamed. Outside, we heard footsteps running around the cabin, fast. Then the back door handle started shaking violently. Carter yelled, "Go away!" The shaking stopped instantly. Then came a voice, right outside the door, male, weak sounding. "I'm cold." Nobody answered. The voice spoke again. "Please, I don't know why." But hearing him sound normal scared me more than anything else. Because suddenly this wasn't some monster, it was a real person. And real people are unpredictable. Then we heard scratching beneath the floor again. Except now, it sounded directly underneath the living room, right below us. Carter slowly backed everyone away from the center of the room. Good thing he did, because seconds later, part of the floor suddenly cracked upward. Wood splintered loudly. A filthy hand shoved through the boards. Lily screamed so hard her voice broke. The hand clawed at the broken wood, trying to widen the opening. I grabbed a lamp and smashed it down instinctively. The hand disappeared immediately. Then we heard rapid crawling underneath the cabin toward the hatch outside. Carter unlocked the truck keys instantly. "Move!" We ran for the front door together. The second we reached the porch, I saw him. A man crawling out from beneath the cabin near the side hatch. Thin, covered in dirt, long greasy hair, wearing layers of filthy clothing even in summer heat. And smiling. That smile is the thing I still remember most. Not angry, not crazy looking, just happy we finally saw him. He stood up slowly, holding something in his hand. A kitchen knife. We sprinted to Carter's truck immediately. The man started running after us, barefoot through the dirt. Fast. Way faster than I expected. Carter barely got the truck started before the guy reached the passenger side. He slammed both hands against Lily's window, screaming something I couldn't understand. Then Carter reversed hard and nearly hit a tree, escaping the driveway. We drove nearly 15 minutes before finding signal again. Police eventually returned with us around 3 a.m. The cabin was empty when they searched it, but the crawl space contained enough supplies to prove someone had lived there for weeks, maybe longer. They also found photographs, dozens of them. Pictures of the cabin taken through windows at night. Pictures of us unloading the truck the first day. Pictures of us sleeping through bedroom windows. One photo showed me standing in the kitchen, taken from a vent beneath the floor. Police never officially caught the man, at least not that we heard. And according to neighbors in nearby towns, there had been reports for years about homeless drifters hiding in abandoned hunting cabins throughout those mountains. But one thing still bothers me. The sheriff told Carter privately that whoever lived under the cabin clearly knew the layout of the house extremely well. Too well, like he'd spent a very long time underneath us. Listening, learning, waiting. And ever since that trip, whenever I stay somewhere isolated, I always check what's underneath the floor first. When I was 19, 4 friends and I rented a cabin deep in the forests of northern Michigan during summer break. It was supposed to be a relaxing week. Fishing, campfires, swimming in the lake nearby, no parents, no responsibilities. Just one final trip before everyone started college. There were 5 of us total. Me, my best friend Dylan, his girlfriend Kayla, another friend named Trevor, and Trevor's younger cousin Isaac. The cabin sat completely isolated near a wooded lake about 20 minutes from the nearest town. No nearby houses, no cabins visible from ours, just dense forest surrounding everything. During the daytime, the place was perfect. Sunlight through the trees, warm air, quiet water, exactly the kind of place people dream about escaping to. But at night, the woods felt different, too quiet. The first strange thing happened on our second night there. We stayed outside late around the fire, drinking and talking until almost 1 a.m. Right as Trevor checked his phone for the time, we heard it. Knock, knock, knock. 3 slow knocks somewhere deep in the woods behind the cabin. Not loud, but clear enough that all of us stopped talking instantly. At first I honestly thought it was someone chopping wood far away. But then it happened again. 3 knocks, slow, evenly spaced, coming from deeper in the trees. Isaac laughed nervously. "What is that?" Nobody answered, because honestly, none of us knew. Dylan shrugged it off first. "Probably somebody camping. At 1 a.m.? Maybe." The sound stopped after a few minutes. Eventually, we forgot about it and went inside, but the next night, it came back, exactly at 1 a.m., 3 knocks, this time closer, much closer. We were all inside the cabin playing cards when it happened. Knock, knock, knock. The sound echoed through the trees outside clearly. Kayla looked immediately uncomfortable. "That sounds way too close." Trevor stood up and checked the front window. Nothing visible beyond the tree line. Just darkness. Then 3 more knocks, a little farther to the left this time, like whoever made the sound was moving around the cabin. Isaac opened the back door slightly to listen better. Dylan immediately pulled it shut again. "Dude, stop." I remember laughing nervously at how paranoid we all suddenly became, but deep down, something about the knocks felt wrong, too deliberate, too rhythmic, and after the 3rd set of knocks, the woods became completely silent. No insects, no wind, nothing. The next morning, Trevor found footprints near the backside of the cabin. Not animal tracks, boot prints. At least one person had definitely walked near the property overnight. That changed the mood instantly. Kayla wanted to leave after seeing them, but Dylan insisted somebody was probably messing with us. Local kids maybe, campers, hunters. Honestly, that explanation made sense, at least then, so we stayed. That afternoon we drove into town for supplies. Small place, just a gas station, diner, and bait shop near the highway, while paying for snacks. Trevor casually mentioned the knocking to the older man working the counter. The guy stopped smiling immediately. "What kind of knocking?" Trevor demonstrated it jokingly on the counter. 3 slow taps. The man stared at him for a second too long, then quietly asked, "You hear whistles too?" Nobody answered, because suddenly the conversation didn't feel funny anymore. The old man shook his head slowly. "You boys should stay inside after dark." Then he walked away before we could ask anything else. That should have been enough warning, but we were young and stupid. That night we stayed up waiting for the knocks. Around 12:55, everyone went quiet automatically, listening, watching the windows. Then exactly at 1 a.m. Knock, knock. Much closer now, not deep in the woods anymore. It sounded like it came from just beyond the trees behind the cabin. Isaac grabbed a flashlight immediately. Trevor followed him to the back porch, despite everyone telling them not to. The porch light illuminated maybe 20 feet beyond the cabin. After that, pure darkness. The flashlight beam moved slowly across the trees. Nothing there. Then suddenly, knock, knock, knock. This time from somewhere farther right. Like whoever made the sound moved impossibly fast around the property. Trevor shouted, "Hey!" Silence. Then a whistle, low, human, deep in the woods. Kayla started crying almost immediately. And honestly, that whistle scared me more than the knocking, because it sounded close, too close. Trevor came back inside fast after that. Nobody joked anymore. We locked every door and window before bed. At around 2:30 a.m., I woke up suddenly. At first I didn't know why. Then I heard movement outside, soft footsteps on gravel, circling the cabin slowly. I stayed completely still listening. The footsteps stopped directly outside my window. Then, 3 soft knocks, not from the woods, from the wall beside the window itself. I nearly stopped breathing. Knock, knock, knock. Slow, gentle, right beside my head. I didn't move, didn't look outside, didn't make a sound. Eventually the footsteps continued around the cabin again. The next morning, I found muddy handprints beneath my window. Someone had absolutely been standing there, watching inside. That's when we finally decided to leave early. But before packing, Trevor convinced us to check the trail behind the cabin first. He wanted proof somebody was messing with us. So around noon, all 5 of us followed the narrow path leading into the woods. The farther we walked, the quieter everything became. No birds, no insects, just wind through trees. Then Isaac found something hanging from a branch. A small wooden carving tied with string. 3 vertical lines carved into it. Right beside it hung another, then another, farther ahead, like markers leading deeper into the woods. Kayla refused to go farther after that. But Trevor kept pushing ahead, and eventually, we found the structure, about 15 minutes deeper into the forest. An old hunting shack, half collapsed, weathered wood, no windows. The door hanging slightly open, and carved across the front wall, 3 deep marks, exactly like the symbols hanging from the trees. Nobody wanted to go near it, but Isaac stupidly walked to the doorway anyway, then froze instantly. What? He backed away slowly without answering. I looked inside next, and immediately wished I hadn't. The shack was filled with dozens of those wooden carvings hanging from the ceiling, along with old photographs nailed to the walls. Pictures of people standing outside cabins, campers, families, tourists. Some photos looked decades old, others looked recent, and one photo showed our cabin, taken at night, from the woods. Kayla screamed the second she saw it. We ran immediately after that. None of us spoke much during the walk back, because suddenly, this no longer felt like random locals messing around. Someone had been watching people out there for years, maybe longer. We packed the truck fast once we returned, planned to leave before sunset. But around 6 p.m., Trevor realized Isaac was gone. At first we assumed he walked to the lake nearby. Then we noticed his phone still charging inside the cabin. We searched everywhere around the property yelling his name. Nothing. Then at exactly 7 p.m., 3 knocks echoed from the woods, much closer than ever before. Kayla completely broke down crying. Trevor screamed Isaac's name toward the trees repeatedly. Then a whistle answered, deep in the forest, followed by another whistle somewhere farther away, then another, like signals. My stomach dropped instantly, because there wasn't just one person out there, there were multiple. We called police immediately, but the nearest sheriff's station was almost 40 minutes away, and the sun was already setting. The knocking continued every few minutes after dark, always moving around the cabin, never staying in one place long. At one point, we saw flashlight beams moving between trees, several of them, slowly circling the property. Trevor wanted to go after Isaac himself. None of us let him. Then around 11 p.m., something hit the front porch hard. All of us jumped. Dylan looked through the peephole carefully, then stepped backward immediately. What? He swallowed hard. It's Isaac's shoe. Sitting on the porch alone was one muddy hiking boot. Nothing else. At exactly 1 a.m., the knocking started again, except this time, it wasn't coming from the woods. It came from the front door. 3 slow knocks. Everyone froze. Then 3 more knocks from the back door simultaneously. Kayla started screaming. Trevor grabbed the fireplace poker while Dylan called police again. Then came the whistles, all around the cabin now. Different directions, different distances, like people communicating in the dark surrounding us. The porch lights suddenly shut off. Darkness swallowed everything outside. And then we heard footsteps running around the cabin. Fast, multiple people, laughing softly. Not loud, just enough to hear. That was the worst part, because whoever they were, they sounded excited. Trevor finally snapped and yanked the front door open. Nobody stood there. But flashlight beams moved rapidly between trees only yards away, and for 1 second, I saw a figure standing behind a tree watching us. Tall, wearing some kind of pale mask. Then it disappeared into darkness. Police finally arrived around 2 a.m. 3 sheriff vehicles, search teams, dogs. The whistles and knocking stopped immediately once headlights entered the property. They searched the woods until sunrise. They found the old hunting shack too. But by then, it had been emptied completely. No photos, no carvings, nothing inside except dirt and dust. Isaac was found the following afternoon walking along a highway nearly 15 miles away, alive, but completely terrified, and according to him, he never saw the people clearly. He claimed someone whistled from the woods while he was alone near the cabin, and he followed the sound, thinking it was Trevor. Then he got lost. That was his story.